The agenda this week heard some strategies for talking to young people about cannabis. We considered what's causing family estrangements and found out how genetic genealogies are helping crack cold cases. The agenda's Week in Review begins with confronting violence in Ontario schools. What kind of violence are we seeing in schools today?
Yeah, I think we're seeing quite a wide spectrum of violence occurring both amongst students and towards staff throughout TDSB schools. And I think we're seeing physical violence, assaults. I think we're seeing verbal threats of violence. And I think we're seeing the grouping of students to be used as kind of an intimidation and harassment tactic. And I think something that's really important and interesting to note at this time is if we compare the first 3 months of last school year to the first 3 months of this school year, the incidence of workplace violence that are reported has gone up over 40%. And so we can see that there's a really wide spectrum of violence occurring, and we can see that it's increasing quite rapidly.
Yeah, I don't want to minimize this, but that kind of makes sense in respect. I mean, they weren't in class a year ago, right? So that's not surprising.
No, not at all. And I think it's one of those multi-layered challenges that we're experiencing both at the local school level and across the school board. And I think our response needs to be multi-layered as well.
Okay, we'll get into that as we go along here. Chris, I know there's always a temptation outside the capital of the city to say, well, that's a Toronto problem, but it's only a Toronto problem. I guess you're here tonight to tell us it's not only a Toronto problem?
It's not a Toronto problem. It's a school problem. It's not only a high school problem. It's an elementary school problem. This is, to hear that it's gone up 40% is really disturbing. It also has to be taken into consideration that the rates were already really high. When we did research, we got rates of, 70% of EAs experience an act of violence in a single school year. So a 40% increase is truly alarming because we're starting at a really high rate already.
Wendy, I know you're retired now, but did you see this kind of violence when you were teaching?
Oh, most definitely. And small rural community, it happens in every classroom. I had a colleague last night share with me that a kindergarten student at his wife's school held another student up against the wall and punched her in the face so hard that her lip split.
Now, this is a male student doing it to a female student?
I'm not sure of the gender, but it was two kindergarten children. So senior kindergarten children. So it happens at all ages and happens frequently and on a daily basis.
Did you ever face violence in your 40 years of teaching yourself, you personally?
On a regular basis. I have a passion for working with special needs children that are behaviorally challenged. I had a student at one point come up to me and his fist came this far from my chin with deadpan eyes and said to me, "I'm going to kill you." Not long after that, his mother's arm was broken.
What did you do when you found yourself in that situation?
I was very calm. I was acting principal that day, so I wasn't in my classroom, but things happened in my classroom on a regular basis. I had a quote-unquote regular class with 5 students that had safety plans in it. Safety plans are created when children can possibly endanger other children. We frequently had desks being overturned, shelves emptied, any piece of furniture not affixed to something overturned. It's a regular occurrence everywhere in the province.
Yeah, let the record show. You're almost 2 hours outside Toronto, so this is not just a Toronto thing. Okay, Anna, here's a tough question. You've had multiple stabbings at your kid's school. And I want to know what it's like as a parent to send your kids off to school every morning knowing that.
Steve, it's really scary. And first of all, thank you for having me here. It's nice to have an opportunity as a parent to speak and talk, but it's really, really scary.
Do you fear for them every day they get out the door?
I believe that it was targeted. However, you never know if your child's going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Right. The older one is desensitized. He said, "Oh, Mom, this is normal." And that in itself is scary. How is that normal? You know, it's the second time it's happened in 7 months. The younger one, you know, he's trying to be brave, but you know, he wants to move. He's like, "Can we move out of here?" I said the same thing. The problem is everywhere. You know, it's not just here. So yeah, it's really terrifying, and especially wondering what's going on. Why are we having a second stabbing? What did we not do the first time? You know, to ensure that this wouldn't happen again.
Christina, come on in here and tell us, what does using cannabis do to a teenager's brain? What does it actually do?
So there's a couple things that are really important. And one is that the cannabis of today is different than what that was used in the 40s and 60s, right? So the THC content and the percent of THC is 2 to 4 times higher today than 40, 50 years ago. And that's relevant when we talk about the effect on the teenage brain. So over the last couple decades, we've learned more and more about how the teenage brain continues to develop until kind of mid-20s. And that's why we would suggest, if at all possible, to try and delay using or experimenting with cannabis till people are into their 20s. Again, knowing that that's not going to be the case for everybody. What happens is the front part of the brain, or the cortex, the frontal cortex, is that seat of reason. And that's the last part of the brain that actually develops in teenagers. That's the thinking, the planning, understanding risks and benefits of decisions we make. And because there's such rapid development happening, that's the area that's most vulnerable to cannabis and has, you know, is affected by it.
Well, if this is the potential that teenagers are looking at if they start using cannabis, 14, 15, 16, and as a parent, you presumably don't want your child doing that, can you preach abstinence, Steve, with any satisfaction?
I think there's a difference between preaching abstinence only and understanding abstinence is one sort of method of reducing risk. In the past, when you saw programs that promoted abstinence only, we found that didn't necessarily work, because the issue is, as soon as a youth maybe chooses to use, that message that surrounds abstinence only tends to kind of fall apart. They lose sort of the other parts of the discussion. We understand, and we do certainly promote the importance, just like you were saying, of waiting until age 25, and that is something I could not agree with more. But we do know that some youth will use. Statistically, we know that the rates of use amongst teenagers can range between about 17% to 21%.
Hang on, I got the stats right here.
Oh, fantastic.
You want it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here we go. Okay, Sheldon, let's bring this graphic up here. Because we've got, we're calling this teens under the influence. This is the percentage of students in grades 7 to 12 reporting cannabis use. 22% reported trying cannabis in their lifetime. 17% said they used cannabis at least once in the past year. 11% reported using at least once in the past month. About 2% of students said they use cannabis daily. 2% using daily. These findings from the 2021 Ontario Student Drug Use and Health Survey. They surveyed more than 2,000 students, grades 7 to 12, across the province. That's who participated. Okay, I'm going to be a smart aleck here.
Sure.
22% admitted to using cannabis at least once,
Yep.
which means 78% are lying about the fact that they didn't try it.
And
Fair?
that's an excellent point to bring up. It's one that we like to bring up with youth as well. There's a common misconception among youth, and sometimes among parents. They believe, everyone's doing it. They say since legalization, everyone's doing it. The research doesn't back that up. It really shows that the majority of youth actually don't use cannabis.
How reliable is that research?
We've seen that in research from the CTADS in 2017 and 2015. We saw it in the Canadian Alcohol and Drug Survey after legalization in 2019. We saw it in the Student Tobacco, Alcohol and Drug Survey. In fact, any national reporting data, and even the provincial reporting data, never actually shows that teenage use or adolescent use, below age 19, ever surpasses the 50% mark. And that's great news to know, especially when you're having that dialogue with youth, to point out that if a youth believes everyone is using it, they may be more likely to try it because they'll base their decision on someone else's experience. And the risk there is that cannabis can have such a different effect on people for a whole wide array of reasons. It could be their medical history. It could be if they have history, like I said, of psychological conditions in their family tree. It could be their body composition. Again, it could be their age with the brain still developing. And if they understand that the majority of people actually don't use cannabis, they can hopefully really frame that decision based on their own beliefs, based on the things they've learned themselves.
Okay, but Christina, I'll acknowledge here, I don't have any longitudinal or latitudinal studies here to look at. I have my kids' experiences and what they told me. that I'm looking at right now. And they told me it's absolutely everywhere. And the notion that 22% of kids are trying it and 78% aren't doesn't jibe with my anecdotal evidence. So tell me I'm wrong.
I think you're wrong. There's no doubt. So what Steve's talking about is it's another myth. So the myth that everybody's using.
I think it's something I truly feel we need to speak more about in society to understand more and to know that not all families operate within this kind of very nuclear, close model that perhaps the media portray us to.
Sonia, in your practice, who wants to, typically speaking, who wants to be estranged from whom?
Typically, it's often adult children who are estranged from their parents. In terms of want to, it may not be something they necessarily wanted to do, but they had to do in order to take care of their personal well-being. It got to a place where the relationship was so toxic that even though people believe, family sticks together, blood is thicker than water, it's just not possible to remain close to family if it's going to affect their own personal well-being.
Okay, Joshua, let's get into the whys then. Why does this seem to be happening more lately than previously?
Well, because the moral framework of what constitutes family has radically gone through a change in the past half century in particular, where the idea of honor thy mother and thy father, respect thy elders, has been replaced with a much more personal self-esteem, mental health, happiness, self-growth, identity-focused notion of relationships. It has to do with what the British sociologist Anthony Giddens refers to as pure relationships, that we've gone from role to self, a preoccupation with doing the right thing in terms of our role as a family member, to what's really good for our identity. So we have that on the one hand. We have the role of divorce, which in my research and other people's research has shown weakens family relationships. We have the role of social media, which serves as the kind of extended kin for both good and bad reasons. We have increasing tribalism, particularly in the United States, rising rates of individualism. So all of these factors contribute to a much more individualized view of family that is relatively new historically.
Okay, I got to follow up on that last part there because we cover a lot of politics on this show. It's not my imagination then that I seem to run into more people these days who say, my parents love Trump and I just can't deal with that and I'm going to have to cut them off. That's a thing now.
It's a thing. Yeah, in the United States, according to one large survey, something like a third of family members are estranged because of political differences, which is really tragic. The old days of agreeing to disagree, or, I'm certainly not a family is forever no matter what. I certainly think that there are plenty of cases where it is the healthiest thing to do to cut off a family member who say consistently against your sexuality or gender identity or won't take responsibility for the ways that they were abusive or hurtful. But I also feel like we become very fragile in what binds us together as family members, and which I think are very problematic.
Let me follow up on that with you, Becca, because, and I'm trying not to make this sound like a stereotype in asking this question, but it is said Gen Y and Gen Z tend to be snowflakier than previous generations. And I wonder how much of estrangement happens because their skin just is not thick enough.
I think that, I want to fundamentally disagree with that, as I'm sure you'd expect me to do. I think that my generation, Gen X, Gen Y, have got more time, they've got more inclination to do more personal work in therapy to explore themselves, and also to explore the intergenerational trauma that their families may have brought to them. And so that means that they are more inclined to put stronger boundaries in place around difficult behaviours. So I wouldn't say it's flaky or having a thinner skin. I think it's actually just, my generation wants more healthy relationships and they want their children to have more healthy relationships. So I think my generation see themselves as kind of like the cycle breakers, the people that want to in some way kind of make better behaviour more prevalent in families.
There was a term there, intergenerational trauma. You want to just give us a handy definition of what that means?
Intergenerational trauma, I see it as a disease that spreads through family relationships. And often some people choose to deal with that disease by changing the relationship dynamic, maybe distancing themselves or breaking their relationship with the family. But fundamentally, it's traumatic reactions that are are perpetuated through the family dynamics because each person internalizes trauma a different way, the way they deal with their thoughts and their feelings, and then that affects their parenting.
As you described it, it's almost a bit of a Wild West in terms of what you can and can't do right now with the information. We have concerns around some of the ways that it might be collected and submitted. As an example, we have families come to us with people they've befriended who are living in nursing homes, and that person might be in end stages. They want to find their family. So their friend, their helpful friend who's just met them, will go ahead and purchase a kit, upload that information for them, tick all the boxes. There isn't any guarantee that the person completing that is actually the person whose sample you're submitting. So we can see a bit of a disconnect there. I think so far with what's happened in the charges in the court process in Canada, we haven't really seen a challenge to it. We've had people who, once their identity was determined, they've already passed. Or once their identity was determined through genetic genealogy, they've entered a guilty plea. We're going to see in February of 2023, when the Stephen Wright case comes to trial, Stephen Wright was charged based on the collection of genetic genealogy of a murder of an 18-year-old person many, many years back. He has decided to enter a not guilty plea.
What jurisdiction is this in?
That is, he was charged at the North Bay Regional Health Center, so where he was an employee. But the murder actually is said to have happened in Sudbury, Ontario. So we expect it's going to be heard in North Bay, but we're curious to see what is his defense lawyer suggesting. What's that strategy going to be? It would appear that, on the face of it, genetic genealogy has got him dead to rights. But obviously, there's something there that makes his defense think that they can mount a not guilty challenge. So we're going to see how that unfolds. I think it will be the first in Canada.
That'll be next February.
February of 2023.
Okay. Claire, give us the view from south of the border. What do you like, what don't you like about what you've just heard?
Well, I mean, I think the incredible success that forensic genetic genealogy has had, particularly in the United States, with well over 500 cases resolved through its use so far. I think it's amazing that we're able to use genetic data like this and the advances in the technologies over the last number of years, and the access to family tree DNA and the access to GEDmatch is incredible. What I hope for the future with it, though, is that we do put those guardrails in place, and that's occurring here in the United States with policies being developed. And it's policies from a number of different facets of this process. It's who conducts this research, who conducts the searching themselves. Are they trained? Are they knowledgeable in this area? Do they understand the restrictions that do exist in terms of what databases you are allowed to upload, who owns the data that's generated from this. So I think that I totally agree that we definitely need guardrails on an international level to protect the use of it, but also to protect public safety, but also to protect public privacy and individuals' privacy also.
Jennifer, what are you hearing about how up on all of this we are here in Canada?
Yeah, I think that people are still very uninformed about some of the protections that are and aren't in place. I keep thinking about whoever the family member is who uploaded their data to GEDmatch, who is the way that Toronto police tracked down the man responsible for the murders of Susan Tice and Aaron Gilmore in 1983. Because, I was talking to Ellen about this earlier, a lot of people who are using these at-home kits are well-meaning citizens. Perhaps they're doing research on their own family tree. They're estranged from their family and they're looking for that connection. And they're not really thinking that they're going to be participating in a murder investigation. They're not thinking they're going to participate in a murder investigation.
Indeed.
And I just don't know what it's like for that person sitting at home who is in some way responsible for a distant relative, cousin, maybe being arrested and potentially spending the rest of their life in prison 40 years later.
Commissioner, you heard all of those different on that laundry list. You've got private, you've got opt-in, opt-out, research. Are you satisfied there are adequate guardrails in place here to protect people?
No.
What's the problem?
First of all, it's awfully complicated, isn't it? that whole machination of who's in, who's out, what you're opting in for, what you're opting out for. And that's when you've read the fine print, you understand the implications of uploading your information. But again, even in the most perfect case where you understand all that and go into it willingly, your family members have not.
And that is just some of what we covered this week. You can find more, including the full conversations. It's on our website, tvo.org, our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda, or on our Twitter feed. That's twitter.com/theagenda.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.